Ever seen a good friend of yours in a tumultuous relationship? Tried to give advice, but they just didn't listen? Ever just want to shake them and tell them to get a grip and leave? I got you covered. Welcome to episode 40, Get Out, and we are getting out in more ways than one. I'm your host, Angie Rolle, the team light that turned my relationship struggles into strength, marital woes into wins, and I made the mistake so you don't have to. I've conquered the mission on how to build a successful relationship. So stick around with me and let's talk love. Hey guys, what's up, and welcome back to Love Inspiry Podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, what's up? If you are listening on Apple, Amazon, Stitcher, TuneIn, we have a lot of folks over there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and supporting Love Inspiry Podcast. I am Angie, like I said in the opening. Today we are talking about, I probably should know if this is episode 40 or 41. I might have made a mistake on this, but please charge it to my head and not my heart. I have been, it's just been a rough 3 weeks. My husband had COVID and I was taking care of him. So business kind of just was on hold. But I'm back now and I'm ready to serve and do what I do and have a good time over here on Love Inspiry YouTube and the podcast as well in business. So I'm very passionate about relationships. I love to talk about them, but enough of that. We're going to jump right into today's episode. So we're talking about getting out, and that's the title of today's show, Get Out. And the thing is, are we telling our friends to get out of this bad relationship, or are we getting out of their business? And so this was really an important topic to talk about because I had just wrapped up some things on Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I started to pose a question and ask a question like, can you really help an abuse victim, or is this something that they have to do on their own? And then as I was asking those questions to myself, I was asking, like, do you mind your business in relationships? Like, if you see somebody getting cheated on, if you see somebody getting lied to, if you see somebody getting abused, do you just mind your own business? Do you say something to them? And if you are listening on the podcast, head over to our social media, drop a comment below. There'll be a clip of this particular podcast. And if you are listening on or watching on YouTube, drop a comment below and let me know. Are you the type of friend to tell somebody that they're getting cheated on, lied to, whatever, or do you just pull back the reins? Now, I'm going to say my piece on that, and then I'm going to give some advice on how to be there for a friend in a toxic relationship. But for me, before, I always said if I ever caught somebody cheating on one of my very close friends or very close family members, like, I'm telling them, there's no way you're getting by on this. I am snitching. I don't care. But the older I get, the more I realize it's best to just mind your business. And I have a few reasons why. And the first reason that I want to talk about, it almost 9 times out of 10 ends up backfiring on you and causing confusion within their relationship and then in the relationship that you guys have. And I think about, if you really think about this, think about it. When you're married and you have an argument with your spouse, and this is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Don't tell your family members nothing. Nothing. Don't tell them nothing. Especially bad things, because, well, I mean, you can tell them good stuff, but don't tell them bad things, because if you sit and you tell them everything your partner did that pissed you off that day, when you and your partner fall back in love, which is most likely what will happen, especially if it's something stupid, and y'all are good, but then when the person showed up to the cookout, the family looking at that person crazy. So it just causes a lot of confusion as to just stay out of people's business and keep people out of your business because of the confusion that it causes in your relationship. Now, obviously, if somebody comes to you for advice, that's something different. However, don't offer your opinion if it ain't asked. And that's just something that I've learned personally. Do not tell your family members every bad thing that happens in your relationship, because I guarantee you, especially if you have controlling family members or family members that are a little manipulative or they're overprotective of you, it's going to be a problem. And the second reason why I don't do that, you truly, honestly, as close as you are to people, you never really know what people are willing to accept. And I always look at like every love is different. My husband and I's love for each other is not like somebody else's love, or if somebody else's love is not like ours. Like everybody's love is different, which means some people are willing to tolerate a little bit more. I know women that literally have stayed with men that have habitually cheated on them. And what I mean by habitually is, I mean, it didn't just happen one time, like it was a mistake, baby, I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again, and it actually never does. No, I'm talking about this person has constantly cheated on them and they have been accepting of it. And you know, I think back, that could be so many reasons why people accept somebody constantly lying to them, habitually cheating on them, abusing them, whatever the case may be. It could be low self-esteem issues. It could be because this person has done something in their past to where they feel like they deserve this kind of man. It could be desperation. It could be a whole lot of things as to why a person stays. However, just because you're close to somebody does not mean you know what they're really willing to accept. Especially, you know, you think about Will and Jada, they have an open marriage. You never know, like that's not something that somebody's gonna come out and say, like, yeah, I have an open marriage, you know, we do what we want to do. That's not something that most people say, because most people like to either cap or they like to just put on a front like they have a holy marriage when they really don't. But some people like that, you know, and if that's what you like, that's what you like. I ain't getting down over here. I ain't sharing nothing. I'll help you, you know, with some other stuff, but I ain't sharing nothing about me. I ain't sharing my man. That's it. No, stops there. But some people get down with the get down, and that's why I kind of mind my business on that. Like if I see it, I mind my business. Obviously, I'm a relationship coach. I'm a relationship podcast. I talk about these things because they're topics that we need to discuss and need to talk about, and people want to hear and understand. So that's why I talk about it here. But if you see me on the outside personally and you're a good friend of mine, unless you specifically come to me and ask me my opinion, I rarely give it to you, especially when it comes to relationships. Also too, like, you know, number 3, you can look bitter. A lot of people, you know, look a little bitter when they tell you that you have a partner that is not does not value you or appreciate you the way that you want to be appreciated. You know, especially if you're single, right? We have this thing where we don't listen to single people. We don't listen to people that have been married less than us, right? And I am kind of one of those people to an extent. People that, I have said this before, like if you have been, I've been married 15 years. If you have been married 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to ask you how did you get to 5 years or 4 years, because I've already been there. Now you may have a better idea on how I can help my husband pick up the clothes behind him, so I'll listen to that. But I'm not going to come to you and ask you certain things like, how did you get to 4 or 5 years? No, because I already know that. I've been there 10, 11 years ago. Like I already been there. I know that. But I say all that to say is, you know, people that are divorced, right? Some of these people can have a lot of wisdom in them. They can be really trying to help you, but on the back burner, you have this idea, and are they bitter because their marriage didn't work out? Single people, are they bitter because they want to be married? You know, so it poses a lot of questions and a lot of feelings of just, you don't want to look bitter to people. Even if you are bitter, like be bitter by yourself. Keep that energy over there by yourself. But don't come off, it can make you come off bitter if you're giving unsolicited advice to somebody. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about before I give advice on how to be there for a friend in a toxic relationship is, and as a coach, you know, I'm saying this to people that aren't really savvy in relationships, but you don't want that responsibility falling back on you if you give somebody bad advice. Now, here's the thing with this. I always think about that Tyler Perry movie. I forget what it was called, but it was with Taraji P. Henson, and she married that man that had this idea in his head over some kind of machine, and you know, he was hustling. He really believed in himself, but she didn't believe in him. Then her sisters got in her head, started talking all that rah-rah, probably bitter. If you saw the movie, if acrimony, I think it was acrimony. I don't know, but anyway, So they obviously were probably bitter themselves, and it turned out, I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but it turned out that they were going through some things, or some, you know, some things in their marriage, which all marriages go through, but, you know, they were too busy in hers. And instead of encouraging her to support her husband, they encouraged her to leave, and she ended up leaving, and basically he ended up getting that major deal. Homeboy got a deal on this movie, okay? And so she kind of felt the type of way. But if you are giving somebody unsolicited advice because you're bitter, because things are not going your way, you know, that responsibility is falling on you. And I don't want, you know, personally, like I said, in business, when I'm coaching people or if I'm talking to people and you ask me, I'm going to take full responsibility on the advice I give you. And if I don't have the answer right then and there, I'm going to tell you, I don't have the answer right now. I just need to pray about it and think about it before, and making sure that I'm giving godly advice before I give Angie advice. Because every now and then, Angie advice comes out and it could not be the best advice. But if I'm giving godly advice, if I'm giving wisdom that I've learned, if I'm in my element, then I am willing to accept that responsibility. But if you're not operating in that way, you can give somebody advice and it cannot pan out well for them, and then you kind of take that responsibility on. So, you know, those are some reasons why I mind my business, and probably why you should mind your business as well. I think the most that resonates for me is it could backfire on you. And number two, you don't really know what people are willing to accept in their relationship. So that brings me back to, can you really help somebody out of a relationship, or do they need to figure it out on their own? And this is such a tough question. I'm curious to know what you guys think. I think for me, as a person, as a 33-year-old woman at the time of this podcast, I would have to say that some things you have to let people go through on their own. And you can let them go through it on their own and be there for them at the same time. And I'm going to give you some ways to do this. I've had friends go through emotionally abusive relationships. I've had family members that have gone through verbally and emotionally abusive relationships. And you can't always force them out of the situation. You know, at times I did want to like shake them, like, oh my gosh, like just get out, get out. But I realized I had to get out of my feelings, because like I'm that overprotective friend, I'm that overprotective cousin, I'm that overprotective sister, daughter, all of that. But I had to learn to get out of my feelings, especially in the profession that I'm in. And talking to family members and friends actually kind of helped me in my profession get out of my feelings and give more sound advice to help this person and to help people in general. So I want to give you some things that you can do to help your friend, family member that may be in a bad relationship, or maybe in an abusive relationship, and you can't shake them out of it. So the first thing is, don't judge, but challenge their normalcy. And what I mean by this is, don't make judgments as like, you know, you in this tore up relationship and this crappy relationship, but challenge their normalcy. Help them understand what a normal relationship looks like, right? So we know normal relationships. I may have a video out on this. If I don't, I'm gonna do one. We know normal relationships look like respect for one another. I don't have to agree with you, but I do have to respect you. We know that normal relationships look like loyalty and trust. It looks like forgiveness, right? Because your partner, you may think you have the best partner in the world. Now, I think I have the best husband in the world, but he's not perfect. He's not Christ. He's going to do something to make me have to forgive him, and vice versa. That's just anybody. Nobody is exempt from that. So you have to have forgiveness. That's what healthy relationships look like. It looks like teamwork and unity, right? How well are we working together? Are we utilizing each other's strengths and weaknesses? And there's ways that you can talk to this person, which can probably be a whole nother podcast, to let them know that what you are identifying as normal is by no means normal. Nobody should be getting verbally abused. Nobody should be getting emotionally abused, mentally or physically abused. Another thing you can do is stay in constant contact with them, but not be overbearing. And the reason why I keep using that word overbearing, or I say that word overbearing, because a lot of the times when somebody's going through something so traumatic as a bad relationship, or they're, you know, being emotionally abused or physically abused, if they're, whatever is going through them, or they're being cheated on, whatever the case may be, they're already going through a lot of things in their head, in their mind. They may not have a job. They may have kids that, you know, they don't want to pull apart from their parent. Whatever the case may be, they already have stuff going on in their mind. So by you constantly harping down their throat, telling them what they need to do, what they don't need to do, what ends up happening is you come off as way too aggressive. You come off as overbearing. Stay in constant contact with them, but do not be overbearing. What this looks like is you don't have to call them every single day. You don't have to blow up their DMs to see, or, you know, post on Facebook or whatever the case may be. But sending a text every other day or every 3 days or once a week, asking them, are they okay? I'm just checking on you, see how you're doing, or how are you doing today, or I love you. Something to know, or something for them to know that you are there and that you have their best interests at heart. When you're going through something like that, sometimes you just need to know that somebody is there. You may want somebody to listen to your advice, but sometimes we need to listen to them. And that's ultimately what they want, until they decide that they've had enough and they're ready to move on from the relationship. So stay in constant contact with them, but don't be overbearing with it. And that goes back to not judging them as well. Also, asking them when you're in that constant contact with them, asking them what you can do to help them, what you can do, what do they need? What do they need? Like I said, sometimes they may need a listening ear. You may be wanting to give this good advice that you have, that you think you have, but sometimes you just need to be the person to listen as opposed to them listening to you. Also, another thing you can do is make sure that you, or not necessarily make sure, but seek professional help so you know how to help them. So there's a ton of different resources online as to where you can go get professional help, or understand, not necessarily professional help, but understand the signs of different things so you can know how to treat this person. There's resources online to help you understand how to treat somebody that is being domestically abused, whether mental, verbal, mentally, or physical, whatever the case may be. So that's something that you can do also, is just to educate yourself so you know how to, you know, handle them and deal with them. Another thing you can do is, when they're ready, help them find some shelter. So a lot of the times victims, even emotional abuse victims, they have been sucked into this mindset of they can't move, they can't operate without this person with them. They may have been had their phones restricted. They may have had internet access restricted. So you can do the groundwork for them and give them all the tools they need to make a sound decision. So there's things we can do, like, you know, just be there. Just because somebody is not listening to your advice doesn't mean that they don't need you. Like I said, sometimes people just have to figure it out on their own. It's like a teenager, right? Y'all remember when y'all was young and y'all thought y'all knew everything, and your parents told you don't do X, Y, and Z, and you went to do X, Y, and Z, and you had to find out the hard way. Like, this is all, when you're in a bad relationship, it's really just a lesson learned. And I talked about that on a previous podcast. Don't look at these bad relationships, these toxic relationships, as failed relationships, but look at them as stepping stones. Look at them as lessons to go into your next relationship, knowing your expectations and knowing the boundaries that you want to set within the relationship. That's all we can do. That's all we can do when we are in toxicity, is understand what happened in that relationship and get those expectations and those boundaries set up for the new relationship that you may enter in whenever you enter into it. So that's all I have for you guys today. It was a really short podcast, about 20 minutes long, but I just wanted to talk about that and let you know what you can do to just be there for your friends, your family members, when they're in a bad relationship, or they're being cheated on, or they're being lied to, emotionally, physically, verbally abused, be there. And I also want to know too what you guys think of. Do you mind your business? Do you guys give advice when not asked? Like, let me know, be honest. Do you give advice when you're not asked? Are you very opinionated when it comes to stuff? Because I know before me, I was like very rah 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 over my people. Like, you're not about to mess with them. And so I was very opinionated on that. But as I learned to grow up, people have to figure stuff out on their own, and it's okay to wait for them to come to you and ask for advice before you give it to them. So for me, I mind my business unless you want to come talk to me. A lot of the people that know me knows I'm going to give you some structural advice. I'm one of those people that believes in being patient with people. There's certain things that I just don't teach people how to tolerate, which is habitual cheating and which is physically being abused. Those are things that I will never hear me say, oh, well, you can tolerate that. No, because I just don't believe in those things. Like, it's just, to me, no. So yeah, let me know what you think. There's a quote online surfacing around: life is easier when you mind your own business. And I thought that was interesting to talk about or to share as we end today's episode. Guys, again, we'll be back every 2 weeks. Again, every other Friday. Hopefully I can have my husband on the next podcast. I want to talk about, I think I wanted to talk about, let me see. I'm looking at my notes here. Is a couple posting too much on social media a red flag? So hopefully my husband can join us on that podcast as we talk about that, because I think that's a 2-person podcast where we can go back around or back and forth. I have a lot of opinions on that. So stick around for that episode in 2 weeks, and I'll see you guys all. Make sure you guys hit me up and follow me on social media at Love Inspiry. I am more focused on my YouTube channel and video content these days, so you will see my face a lot more, and smiling and giving the best advice I can according to the word of God, and you know, every now and then a little slide in my little opinion, but that's okay. So guys, I'll see you all in the next episode. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and if you have a birthday coming up, happy birthday. Mwah. Love you guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.